Max Verstappen had some interesting responses to Sky Sports' questions. Doohan gave his thoughts on the Colapinto situation, and Piastri was rather honest about a number of things. Here is a summary of the interesting parts from the Australian F1 race weekend's drivers' press conference. Part 1. Verstappen was asked how he thinks the season's going to go and whether he thinks he's going to be able to win the championship, and he pretty much said he's not really thinking about it. He's just kind of going with the flow because things can change really easily within F1. Now, Sky Sports was one of the media outlets who were asking questions around this subject. For example, Crofty was asking a rather long question that was essentially saying, what do you need to be a champion and to be successful? So Verstappen said, yeah, well, there's a lot of things that you make me think about that I actually don't think about. And then Craig Slater asked a question that was essentially about McLaren, to which Max replied, yeah, I mean, you answered it yourself. But he also talked about the young drivers and said that he hopes they stay for a long time. However, there isn't any advice that he would give to the version of himself that debuted all of those years ago. And the reason for that is this quote, which I actually thought could be applicable to so many areas of life, so I felt like I needed to share it with you guys. And lastly, speaking about parenthood, he said that he wants his child to choose their own career. Moving on to Jack Doohan, he said that the goal for this weekend is to enjoy himself, and he said that driving in Abu Dhabi was really useful because there were some nerves, but now going into this weekend, he's a lot more comfortable and relaxed. Also, he said that he doesn't count Liam Lawson as a rookie. He feels like the car was reliable, and one journalist insinuated that Australian drivers have more pressure on them going into their home race than other drivers do going into their home race. To which he disagreed, and I have to agree with him. Lastly, he said that he has not thought about the Colapinto stuff because he has a contract for this year, if not more, and he reminded the journalist that it's not only Colapinto who wants his seat, there are 4 reserve drivers, so really he has 4 people on his back. Then we get to Piastri, who was asked whether this could be the year that an Australian wins the Australian Grand Prix because that's never happened before, and then he replied back with this, which I thought was a little sassy, and keeping on the media train, he said that he has not watched Drive to Survive, and he kind of insinuated he's aware of the fact that Netflix cut things quite differently. And Max also talks about DTS, basically saying he's aware of the fact that they edit things quite heavily, and he hasn't watched it, but he has seen things on X, although not by choice. Furthermore, he was asked about re-signing, and he basically said it just felt quite natural, especially as people like Lando, Andrea, and Zach are going to be here for the long term. Naturally, he was asked questions that sort of danced around papaya rules without actually saying the 2 words, and he basically said that he's confident in his abilities going into this season, but he's aware of the fact that it's never going to be easy going against Lando because he's incredibly talented. Nevertheless, McLaren are very clear on the rules of engagement. They have definitely learned from last year. Also, speaking about this season, he thinks it's going to be quite tight, but the new regs next season are going to change the pecking order quite a bit. Lastly, Verstappen and Piastri were asked about Dominicali's re-signing, and Piastri said he has been a help to the sport, his door is always open for drivers, and he has been very receptive to ideas and concerns. Meanwhile, Max said it's great for F1 and Dominicali is also a great person.